Good morning. Greg Howes. Welcome to Morning Pulse. Checking out what's happening with us, checking our pulse, and we're checking into what's happening with our God. What is in his heart and mind for us as we begin this day? God bless you so much. We also want to tap into the pulse of the culture around us and what we can do to impact this culture. So I'm so grateful that you are spending a few minutes with me this morning. Cornerstone people, we're reading the Bible. We're in the book of Revelation, so keep up with your reading schedule. Stay after it. Today, I believe, is Revelation 7, 8, and 9. These are short chapters, so it shouldn't take you a great length of time to do it. So keep up with the reading. And tonight, 7:30 p.m. Central Time, is our Cornerstone midweek session. And tonight, we're going to start digging into some of the Old Testament prophecies concerning the coming of Jesus, the birth of Jesus. Excuse me. So we're going to be tying in the prophetic words from the Old Testament into what we call the Christmas story. So we're going to begin that tonight and carry that through the next couple of weeks. So should be good. 7:30 p.m. tonight, Central Standard Time. Gonna be good. Yeah. This Sunday is the second Sunday of the month, so we have our Heart of a Witness evangelism training taking place this Sunday. We still have our coat drive, new toy and coat drive, so bring some new toys, new coats for children in the community. Bring them into the church. There are boxes there where you can deposit them. Coming up this month, Christmas Eve is on a Sunday and New Year's Eve is on a Sunday. Just want you to be aware that we will have morning worship gatherings on both of those Sundays at 9:30 a.m. Central Time, December 24th, December 31st. And the evening of December 31st, New Year's Eve Surge. This is for youth and young adults with Jefferson J. Jones and Joshua Timberlake. Going to have a great time of breakthrough for our youth and young adults. So plan on that, 8:30 p.m., December the 31st. And everything we're doing is establishing an apostolic foundation. Sound, sure, and stable, secure. We're moving to construct something powerful for the generations to come, but it must be established on a solid apostolic foundation. Now, this morning, I want to dig into this issue of continuity a little bit more. This is something that I don't think I've taught on before up until these recent weeks, where it's starting to pop up a bit more. And usually, when I run across something new, a new concept, a new idea, a new thought for me, I have to keep digging into it. I have to keep excavating, studying. I'm Googling things. I'm reading. I'm listening to what some other people are saying, and just digging in and checking out whatever that subject matter may be. And eventually, I hit a vein, and I've been digging into this issue of continuity now, and I believe that I'm hitting a vein. Okay. So I want to share a little bit more with you this morning. And I want us to be developing a thought pathway. That's big for me. A thought pathway. That doesn't mean we have it all together or we have arrived at anything. It just means we've started to walk on a pathway. And our thinking process is being challenged. Yeah. And so we can question things, we can think about things, we can pray about things, we can dig into the Word of God and really discover what He has for us. So when we come to this issue of continuity, I think this question is absolutely critical for us. How do we build to cultivate continuity over the next 100 years? How do we build to cultivate continuity over the next 100 years? Now, the last couple of times we've been together, I've ended with this. But today I'm starting with this, which means we're going somewhere. Think about the next 100 years. And you know, it really isn't that long. I was thinking about my parents. My dad was born in 1912. My mother was born in 1917, 5 years apart. Both of them moved from the eastern parts of the United States to Los Angeles in the early 1930s, where they attended Angelus Temple and were in the ministry of Aimee Semple McPherson, attended Life Bible College. Well, Aimee was still there, where she was still living and thriving in her ministry in the early 30s. That was only 90 years ago. Now I say only 90 years, and it's like, wow, 90 years, that's a long time. And it is. But in the overall spectrum of things, 90 years really isn't that long ago. I came along in 1952. 1952. So I'm about to turn 71. So I've been around here almost 3/4 of a century. My life. So I'm thinking about that. I'm like, man, that's pretty amazing. Closing in on 90 years with my parents being involved in ministry and church. Of course, they've gone home to be with the Lord. They're not still here. But I'm just tracing it back. And then my life beginning in 1952 and tracing my experience also in the same church, the Foursquare Church, since 1952. And now leading the congregation here in Chicago Heights, Illinois for the last 41 years plus. So you're thinking about all of that. So when I say, how do we build and cultivate continuity over the next 100 years, it really isn't that far out of reach, even though it sounds like it. It isn't. When you stop and think about it, it really is not. You're dealing with your life, your children, and your grandchildren. And you've pretty much covered 100 years by the time everybody's grown. So just consider that. Consider that. This guy, Nathan Mayer Rothschild, interesting guy. He and his father had 5 sons. Nathan is one of them. They began to move in the financial markets in the late 1700s, early 1800s. Nathan Rothschild was responsible for funding the Napoleonic Wars. He funded General Wellington at the Battle of Waterloo when the English defeated the French, the British. Rothschild was funding that. He made loans to nations and collected the money back with interest. He and his family, the Rothschild family, were the first to begin to move in international banking, forming international banking systems in the early 1800s. When Nathan Rothschild died in 1836, the family fortune was worth about $35 billion, billion with a B, in 1836. Rothschild set it up so that their family wealth could only be transferred, it could only move through the men of the family line. Only through the men of the family line. And so when you trace the movement of their wealth building, and we come all the way up to the present day, estimates are now that the wealth level of the Rothschild family is somewhere around $20 trillion, trillion with a T. So Rothschild passed away in 1836, family value of $35 billion. Now, after all of these years, continuity, now we're up to about $20 trillion. And the Rothschild family members involved in all types of banking situations and business situations, owning different businesses, well-known businesses. Google it and you'll find it. You'll see the information. So it's amazing how the Rothschild family moved in continuity over their years. Look at this. This man named Kimball was a Sunday school teacher. And in his ministry, D.L. Moody got saved, came to the Lord. Through Moody's ministry, a man named Chapman came to the Lord, got saved. Out of Chapman's ministry, Billy Sunday got saved. He was big here in the Chicago area back in the day. Out of Sunday's ministry, a man named Ham, Mordecai Ham, was saved, born again, began to minister, following the call of God. And out of Ham's ministry came the ministry of Billy Graham. Billy Graham got saved in the ministry of Mordecai Ham. You trace that line of preachers, and you'll see continuity over decades of time. 100-year period, 100 years. Kimball to Moody to Chapman to Sunday to Ham to Graham. Whew. Continuity. Yesterday, I was listening to a podcast. It's David Sanborn podcast. David Sanborn is a jazz saxophone player. He was interviewing a younger guy named Emmanuel Wilkins, who is an up-and-coming sax player now, becoming more and more popular. And they were talking about how the current jazz musicians have the advantage of building their music and their flavor and their taste and their skill level and their creativity. They're able to build on over 100 years of jazz music, dating back to the turn of the century, from the 1800s into the 1900s. So you're going back into the early 20th century. You're seeing these guys like Louis Armstrong. He was probably one of the most famous jazz musicians back then. You've got the Duke Ellington Orchestra. You're coming up now through the mid 20th century, and you've got guys like Ramsey Lewis and Miles Davis, Thelonious Monk. These guys are rising up. And now you come up to the present day and you have all of these newer, younger jazz musicians that are rising on the scene now. The point is about 120 years of continuity in jazz music. And so that the current jazz musicians have a 120-year history to build upon. A foundation was established, and now they're building on that foundation. Isn't that amazing? Thought pathway. Come on, think with me. Think with me. Look at the scriptures now. Genesis 17, God dealing with Abraham. I will establish my covenant between me and you and your descendants after you in their generations, for an everlasting covenant, to be God to you and your descendants after you. Notice the continuity here. Also, I give to you and your descendants after you the land in which you are a stranger, all the land of Canaan, as an everlasting possession, and I will be their God. That's why we're able to say in this situation currently that Israel is not occupying the land. Israel owns the land. It was given to them right here. Verse 9, and God said to Abraham, as for you, you shall keep my covenant, you and your descendants after you throughout their generations. This is my covenant which you will keep between me and you and your descendants after you. And then he goes on and describes the cultural, religious, moral, and ethical practice of circumcision among the Jewish males. And he says this will be for your descendants throughout their generations, throughout their generations. Psalm 105, verse 7. He is the Lord our God. His judgments are in all the earth. He remembers his covenant forever. The word which he commanded, watch this, for 1,000 generations. Talk about continuity. Come on. For 1,000 generations. The covenant which he made with Abraham, his oath to Isaac, and confirmed it to Jacob for a statute, to Israel as an everlasting covenant. The covenant with Abraham, the oath with Isaac, confirmed to Jacob, father, son, grandson, continuity. And he said, to you I will give the land of Canaan as the allotment of your inheritance, when they were few in number, indeed very few, and strangers in it. Think about that. You don't have to be large numbers. You can be very few in number. You can even consider yourself to be a stranger or a foreigner in a strange land, and you can still multiply and be effective in continuity over multiple generations. I mean, I look at my family, and of course, my children, I've got my daughter, Christine, my son, Jonathan. Jonathan is Down syndrome, so there's not going to be any production there as far as children. But with Christine, she has 3. So I have 3 grandchildren. And I can look at that and say, well, that's only 1 daughter. That's only 3 grandchildren. A daughter, son-in-law, 3 grandchildren. But what if those grandchildren each decide, now I'm not saying they're going to, but let's just say, what if? What if they each decided to have 10 kids each? So the 3 now become 30. And now my great-grandchildren are coming up and they're reproducing. And let's just say they each 30 times 10, then where are we? 300. So you could see how it begins to grow and expand exponentially over the generations. The possibility is there to bring continuity over the next 100 years and to see growth and development in that. Look at Psalm 72, verse 4. God will bring justice to the poor of the people. He will save the children of the needy and will break in pieces the oppressor. So we have 3 classes of people here: the poor, the children, and the oppressed. He says, they shall fear you as long as the sun and moon endure, throughout all generations. Throughout all generations, continuity. Psalm 89. I will sing of the mercies of the Lord forever. With my mouth will I make known your faithfulness to all generations. Continuity. For I have said, mercy shall be built up forever. Your faithfulness you will establish in the very heavens. I have made a covenant with my chosen. I have sworn to my servant David, your seed I will establish forever and build up your throne to all generations. This is the promise God made to David. I will establish your throne for all generations. And the writer says, Selah. Think about it. Meditate on this. Consider it. Faithfulness to all generations. Establishing a seed forever. Building a throne to all generations. Continuity. Growing in continuity. And then the scripture I've been sharing with you from Daniel 4 and verse 3. How great are his signs, how mighty his wonders. His kingdom is an everlasting kingdom. The kingdom of God is forever. It always has been. It always will be. His kingdom is an everlasting kingdom. And his dominion endures from generation to generation. So it's God's intent for dominion, this prevailing movement to transcend the generations and move generationally. But if our generation drops the ball and we do not fulfill our assignment, we do not build around our mission with the intent of seeing this move for the next 100 years, if we drop the ball, then we have nothing to give to the next generation, and they have to start all over again. So God's plan is for generational dominion. His dominion endures from generation to generation, but that is conditional upon the current generation doing their thing and doing it well, so that we have something to give to the rising generation that's coming up behind us. That is called continuity, multi-generational living, continuity. So how do we build to cultivate continuity over the next 100 years? Let me give you a few thoughts. There must be thought, prayer, strategic planning, timeline, actionable steps, and relationship building to empower and establish the emerging generations. Let that sink in for a moment. Thought, prayer, strategic planning, actionable steps on a timeline, and relationship building. Are we happy to leave the next generation with our current conditions? Or are we seeing something better? Think about that. Do we like what we have? Do we like the world that we live in? Do we like the way our church is right now? Do we like the way our businesses are right now? Do we like the way our families are existing right now? Are we happy to leave the next generation with our current conditions? Or are we are we seeing something better, and we're reaching for what is better? Here's another question to consider. Are we establishing a good name? Are we establishing biblical literacy, financial security, property, and education for our children and our grandchildren? Think about that. Proverbs 13:22 says that a good man leaves an inheritance to his children's children. Not just his children, but to his grandchildren. There's a multi-generational thought process and planning and strategizing that goes into this, cultivating continuity for the next 100 years. What is the current condition of your name? Is it good or is it questionable? Consider your name. This plays into this continuity. Proverbs 22:1 says that a good name is to be chosen rather than great riches, loving favor rather than silver and gold. A good name must be chosen. It must be valued even over great riches. Young people that are on this today, I want you to be hearing that. Your good name is critical. That's why hopefully you see your mother or your father doing everything they possibly can to build a good name, because they want you to realize the value of that good name. So think about that. What is the current condition of your name? It has something to do with building continuity over the next 100 years. Here's a couple of more things. Are we fully engaged in building viable, integral ministry that will be thriving, vibrant, and impactful for decades to come? Ooh. Are we fully engaged in building viable, integral business ventures that will be constructed to endure any future economic shakings? Cultivating continuity for the next 100 years. Think about that, about your church, your ministry. Is it viable? Is it characterized by integrity? Can you say it is thriving? It is vibrant. It's having an impact on the community. It's having an impact on multiple generations. And we're building something, and we're building around mission, not around a personality, but we're building around mission so that what we are doing will stand the test of time and it will still be thriving and viable, impactful 100 years from now. When I look at Cornerstone, can I see that what we are doing now will still be thriving and vibrant in 21, 23, going into 21, 24, 100 years from now? Final question. What will we be remembered for? What will we be remembered for? 100 years. 100 years. Continuity. What will we be remembered for? I hope this has inspired a thought pathway for you. Let's start thinking multi-generationally. Let's start thinking out decades of time instead of just the next week. Where are we going to be 100 years from now? Consider it. And everything you put your hands on today is going to be prosperous. It's going to be successful. Because today is now your next first day for cultivating continuity over the next 100 years. Have a great day today. Thanks for being on with me. God bless you so much. Be strong in the Lord and in the power of his might. I'll talk to you soon.